Let me ask you a question. If a program like the NSA spying, which was so vast and intrusive, could be kept secret for so long, what else is going on that we just don't know about? You know, it's often said that the biggest flaw of most conspiracy theories is that, eventually, someone is going to say something. Someone is going to come forward with the truth. Well, it took years for Edward Snowden to summon the courage to put his life literally on the line to expose these secrets. The fact is, any whistleblower associated with any conspiracy would be under the same pressure, if not worse, that Edward was under. In his interview with Glenn Greenwald of The Guardian, Edward himself said that the corruption and abuses of the NSA were known throughout the office, but it became NSA culture to see these invasions of privacy, but to simply accept them.
When you see everything, you see them on a more frequent basis. And you recognize that some of these things are actually abuses. And when you talk to people about them, in a place like this where this is the normal state of business, people tend not to take them very seriously and move on from them. But over time, that awareness of wrongdoing sort of builds up, and you feel compelled to talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more you're ignored, the more you're told it's not a problem.
Now, before the mainstream media began reporting on the NSA scandals, you would have been labeled a paranoid, tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist if you spoke about the NSA performing such invasive procedures. But now, simply because the mainstream media says it's not a conspiracy theory, it seems everyone accepts the NSA scandal as conspiracy fact, even though multiple whistleblowers had already come forward about this in earlier years, but of course, the media ignored those cases. And in reality, the fact that the NSA could get away with such broad, massive, widespread intrusions for so long tells us something very important about the nature of secrecy in government. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of NSA workers, either directly in the government or indirectly through private contractors. The fact that the NSA data mining could go on for so long without the mainstream media reporting on it, and with only a few other whistleblowers coming out before Snowden, tells us that no matter how vast, corrupt, and destructive the government conspiracy is behind the scenes, there is no guarantee that a whistleblower will come forward and, more importantly, no guarantee that the corporate media outlets will cover it. And of course, when it is government policy to label whistleblowers as traitors, and the fact that the government consistently treats people who expose government corruption as criminals, it shouldn't be hard to imagine why, in the past, people who have seen government corruption simply choose not to go public with the information. Fact is, under the United States government, you're only allowed to expose corruption if it doesn't implicate the government. And if you don't think this is true, then why is Bradley Manning facing a possible lifetime prison sentence for exposing corruption and malpractice in government? Is this how the United States government treats those who seek the truth? Now, the information that Edward Snowden revealed implies government tyranny and intrusiveness. But the government can always twist that and say that they're spying on us for national security.
Preventing more atrocities in the hands of the evil ones.
And they can say that the collected information has helped stop terrorists, whether or not that is actually true. So, although Snowden pointed a very scrutinizing finger at the government, this NSA scandal doesn't necessarily prove the government is evil or trying to hurt Americans. But when it comes to a more sinister conspiracy theory, something that might imply that the government was deliberately trying to harm its own citizens, anyone who might try to whistleblow would likely be far more intimidated, because the severity of the government crime would likely create a more severe reaction from the government. Just like Bradley Manning was prosecuted, placed in solitary confinement, and is potentially facing many years in prison simply for being honest, how many other whistleblowers are there out there who came forward, but because the information they were exposing was so severe and incriminating towards the government, that the government decided a court hearing was not enough to stifle the blowback that would arise from the whistleblowing? Bradley Manning exposed government corruption in the Iraq War, but the government can just say that's collateral damage in keeping us safe from the terrorists. Edward Snowden exposed government corruption through the NSA spying scandal, but the government can just say that's necessary to keep us safe from the terrorists. But what if, in the past, there have been whistleblowers who came forward to expose government corruption, but the secrets they tried to reveal were so damning that they could not be justified and rationalized by the government as national security? What then? If the government will go as far as to prosecute and imprison whistleblowers for things that, at the least, can be rationalized as national security, how far would the government go to silence a whistleblower with information that proves there are elements in the government that are trying to harm us? Would the government go as far as to kill these whistleblowers, to assassinate them, ensuring absolute silence to prevent a truly incriminating government conspiracy from leaking? Once again, remember, the government calls Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden traitors for exposing government corruption and harm upon its people.
Do you think that's true? Do you think he's a traitor?
I think he's either a defector or a traitor. I guess take your pick.
If that's how far the government will go when it comes to war crimes and NSA spying, that can always be justified as part of national security, how far would the government go to handle whistleblowers who have incriminating evidence about a conspiracy far more damning? If the government will imprison whistleblowers, would the government kill whistleblowers?
In the 3 years after the murders of President Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald, 18 material witnesses died. 6 by gunfire, 3 in motor accidents, 2 by suicide, 1 from a cut throat, 1 from a karate chop to the neck, 3 from heart attacks, and 2 from natural causes. An actuary engaged by the London Sunday Times concluded that on November 22, 1963, the odds against these witnesses being dead by February 1967 were 100,000 trillion to 1.
Now, if all these people are dying because the government is trying to keep things secret, then that would mean there is a pretty powerful and secretive effort within the government that is clearly corrupt and destructive. Yet this shouldn't be so hard to believe, because that's exactly what the NSA is, a powerful, secretive effort within the government that is clearly corrupt and destructive. The fact of the matter is that the NSA spying scandal is about as vast, secretive, and damning a conspiracy as most conspiracy theories out there. In fact, the NSA conspiracy theory, which is now regarded as fact by most in society because the mainstream media has chosen to report on it, makes most other conspiracy theories look like a walk in the park. And in this way, we are all officially conspiracy theorists now, because by all standards and definitions, the revelations leaked by Edward Snowden implicate this government as not only willing to commit massive offenses against the American people, but the government will also strive to keep these things secret and will also have the mechanisms in place to punish and keep silent anyone who speaks out. I'll leave you with this one final point. The human mind, for all its power, has one fatal flaw that limits its potential to understand the world. Humans tend to assume that most of what they know about the world is most of all there is to know about the world. Before the NSA spying scandal leaked, most Americans did not ponder, even for a second, that the NSA was collecting their phone and internet records on such a massive scale. Yet despite the ignorance of the American people, the fact is that the NSA was data mining massive amounts of private information without the public knowing. Once the news broke that these intrusive NSA tactics had been going on for years, then the American people accepted this fact as part of their paradigm and perception of the world. If something so vast and intrusive as the NSA spying could have occurred for so many years with no one in the public knowing about it, what else is going on behind the scenes in secrecy of government that we just haven't learned about yet? The point is, there is a whole other realm of possibility beyond the horizon of what you currently know. What else is going on out there?